All right. Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. We know more people are coming into the space. We thank you so much for joining us. We know that a lot of people are joining us on your lunch break or an extended lunch break. And so we want to be mindful of everyone's time and really redeem the time for this very important conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll let you know a couple of things logistic wise as we go ahead and begin the program today. But as we get started, we want to again welcome you to A Mindful State, the Washington Wellness Project. We also want to acknowledge Green Trike, UW Smart Center, Mindful State, and OSPI, all for partnering to make this important work happen, not just this event today, but this important work that is really getting started, this campaign happen. So thank you all for being here, and thank you again for those organizations and many others that have worked together to partner to make this work happen. And I think the next slide is the agenda. And then right after that, we'll be moving into a very important piece, which is our land acknowledgement, where I'll be introducing Kim. And so our agenda today, again, we're gonna do filling and check-in, mindful moment, discuss some health data, hear from some very powerful youth leaders, talk about learning circles, give you more information on the mindful state, and then also share some resources. But in order to kick this off, and again, to do it in a very respectful manner, I want to turn it over to Kim for our land acknowledgement.
The Washington Wellness Project, A Mindful State, acknowledges that we work on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples, the original stewards of the land, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed actions that empower the original stewards of these lands.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Welcome.
Next up, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Farron to the stage, to the podium.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Farron Johnson. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Green Trike, newly launched OSTI in our Pierce County space. And since we're grounding this around wellness and mental health, I also want to ground our check-in in some social emotional learning strategies that we hope that you can take back with you, be able to inform your staff and your students with it. And so the next slide, we do this strategy. It's called an emotion check. So it's very important before we get ready to talk about some deep stuff, we need to check in and see how everybody's doing right now, because how you come into the space is how you receive when you're in the space as well. So the next slide, hopefully we can get to that. We do this, it's called zoning. And if you're in the blue zone, you might be feeling a little tired. You probably haven't had your coffee yet. You might not be feeling well. If you're in the red zone, you might be really, really, really excited, or you might be just a little upset about something. If you're in your yellow zone, you might be like really thrilled, or there might be some anxiety showing up in the space. And if you're in the green zone, you're feeling good. You're ready to learn. You're feeling calm. So see where you are in your zone right now. There's some other words. Being maybe upset about something or really, really excited. There's nothing wrong with being in our emotions. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So in the chat, would you please just zone in, see where you are here in this space, and go ahead and just zone in and let us know how you're feeling in the space before we get started. And again, this is a strategy that we use to check in with our young people before we get into any type of programming or any type of conversation, just to check temperature. And if there's something that we need to deal with, we address that live while we're in this space. So thanks for joining in, and hopefully this is a strategy that you could take back with you to your organization and be able to implement. Seeing a lot of greens in the space. That's what's up. Sun's out.
Something about that sun being out, isn't it? Right. I know we have some people joining us from California, so this is sun being out here in the Pacific Northwest is a very important thing for our own mental health and wellness. But thank you so much for leading us through that, Farron. And again, as Farron mentioned, it's important that we not only talk about this, but that we also are practicing this ourselves, right? And modeling this. So thank you so much. Up next, we'd like to introduce Dr. Sabine Thomas, who is going to walk us through a mindful moment.
Thank you very much, Damad and Farron, for just leading us into this space today. About a year ago, I had the opportunity to engage into another conversation with an awesome team member and community member who's here on our call today. And it's incredible that we are almost leading a similar conversation today. The question that I asked her is thinking about our major organs. I promise not to take you to a physiology course here today, but just bear with me. I said, you know, when we actually think about all of our organs, what is one organ that feeds itself first before it takes care of any other organs in the body? So if you can use the chat and let me know if you know the answer. What is one organ that takes care of feeding itself before it feeds the rest of the body? And let's just take about 10 seconds. Brain is deaf. Oop. Oh, yes. Okay. Excellent. I can set the stage. And so here we are when we're talking about mindfulness, is really having a space to be attentive, to heighten a level of awareness, and to be at a space where we take particularly attention to care. The heart, in fact, has two major arteries that before it feeds the rest of the body comes back to itself. And this is the space I'd like for us to be anchored in today when we're thinking about a mindful moment. We are going to hear, listen, engage with youth who are going to share moments of their lives, who are going to share times that they've gone through. And we like for you to really stay in that space of attention, to give them your care, and at the same time to take care of yourself. We may have moments where we're feeling triggered. I encourage you to take some time to maybe shut down your video, to take a glass of water, and to breathe. Breathing, as we know it, has not been a function that has been fully afforded to us for the past almost 13 months. We've been masked, we've been indoor, and when we are outdoor, depending on the space we're in, we have to wear a mask. So in this space, and I see several folks today joining us with a mask, do what you have to do. If you can, however, take a full breath. Take several breaths during the call today as you're listening to our youth. We, interestingly enough, never fully use our lung. I call it, we never use the full real estate that our lungs has afforded us. And so take some time to take deep breath in and out when you are listening to this space. When we leave our space today, I know that our team has prepared a list of resources for you to engage, to reach out to someone. Please do, a family member, a close one, an extended family member, and really take some time to utilize these resources. If you are being called upon and you're on the call to listen to somebody, continue to listen with attention, with care, and with mindfulness. These are definitely spaces that we're asking you to engage in. Breathe, take care of yourself, and listen with an incredibly mindful heart, knowing that we are going through this together. However, our individual stories are very specific to each and every single one of us. Honor these words, take care of yourself, and enjoy the space that we've created today. Thank you, Jamad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sabine, and what a great reminder to breathe. I know with a lot of the events that are happening in the world today and that have happened even this week, that could be one of the things that we sometimes forget to do. For me personally, I felt a lot of tension coming up this week for myself internally. And thankfully, a good friend of mine reminded me to breathe and to focus on my breathing, and how that is a privilege and a right that has been stolen from many people. So thank you for that reminder, Dr. Sabine. Up next, we want to introduce Kelsey Schmitz and Maria Flores, who are going to walk us through some of the statewide data. So thank you so much. Kelsey, it is all yours.
All right, thanks, Jamad. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Schmitz. I work at the University of Washington SMART Center, the School Mental Health Assessment Research and Training Center, and I lead what's called the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, where we train school mental health providers in Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Maria Flores from OSPI. Just want to take a few minutes to sort of set the stage for why we're here. And I appreciate the mindful moment that we just had, because some of these things are really hard to hear. As our invitation stated, it's been a tough year, and most of us have had impacts on our well-being. And what I want to share with you is this graph that can help us understand the behavioral health symptoms during the pandemic and really any disaster. So I need to give credit to this to the Department of Health and Dr. Kira Mosseth, who just does a wonderful job explaining this this chart and the decades of research that have shown us that there's a certain response and recovery patterns that humans go through when disasters happen. So this chart's been updated and adapted to Washington State during COVID. And just take a minute to look at this timeline and note that, you know, after COVID started there where it says impact, you know, there was an initial heroic honeymoon phase. I think we all remember this, like we're in this together, you know, we're strong, you know, really bonding together. And then those stages were followed by what's referred to as the disillusionment phases. Really when we moved into this stage into the fall and winter. Really kind of when things were coming up and we were being told, you know, it's kids aren't returning to school. Most of us aren't returning to work and we're continuing to work from home. So this is a really challenging time during the disillusionment phases. And reality really sets in and is the highest risk for behavioral health symptoms during this phase. And then we start to move into reconstruction and recovery. But I want you to note the dashed lines. While there will be some that will be moving quicker into these phases, there will be others that will continue to experience challenges in sort of a going through that secondary disillusionment phase. And will take them a bit longer to return to how they functioned before the pandemic and really be impacted in a significant way. So we're going to just take a moment because what I want to hear from you in the chat on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being I can't at all relate to these phases. And 3 being, I can totally relate to this either personally or somebody that I care a lot about. So how do you relate to what you've seen and what you've heard about the phases of disaster and behavioral health symptoms that occur across the phases? Yeah, seeing lots of 3s. Got a 1 in there, but you know, I don't know about you all, but the first time I saw this, it just really resonated with me and helped me realize that there's a reason why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. All right, so continue to feel free to let us know in the chat how you can relate, and we'll move on to the next slide, where I want to just share some things that we know. We know that most recently, a youth mental health crisis was proclaimed in our state. As we saw some increasing rates of eating disorders, anxiety, mood disorders, depression, with suicidal thoughts or self-harm behaviors, those things have increased. The rates of emergency department visits have increased significantly for Washington youth at a much higher rate than previous for that group. Our hospitals are showing increases. For example, Seattle Children's is reporting 1 to 2 children being admitted each night for attempted suicide. Swedish Medical Center, again, increasing pediatric inpatient admissions. Mary Bridge reporting their admission rate for mental health reasons has increased approximately 67% from March last year to February of this year. these are, these are sad and these are hard, but we need to just reflect on where we are and what we can do to move through this and how we can support each other. So there's a couple of links there if you want to read more from the governor's proclamation and a brand new report that's out on the Youth Behavioral Health Impact Situation Report. So I'm going to turn it over now to Maria.
Thanks, Kelsey. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Flores, and I'm the Executive Director for the Center for the Improvement of Student Learning at OSPI. OSPI is the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, so all of our public schools in Washington. And as Kelsey said, we know that our mental behavioral health crisis is exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. But I just want us to sit with the fact that these factors have always been here. And we have had this issue for a long time. It's just that the veil has been lifted in a way that maybe it hasn't before due to the pandemic. So sharing some of the things that Superintendent Regdahl and OSPI are focusing on to address this in our capacity. We have been advocating with the legislature to empower all schools to support the whole child and to fund and increase school staffing for the staff that support safety and social emotional needs of students. So these are the school psychologists, social workers, counselors, that we actually have the staff that we need, particularly next school year when we are able to hopefully go back to normal in the buildings to support students. We also are trying to create a statewide system of multi-tiered systems of support. So thinking of that in that pyramid again of being able to move through the levels of support that each student needs and that the district needs to be able to provide in an integrated fashion for the student and their family. The good news is that the legislature looks like they completely understand this concept and are going to fund it. So we're waiting for the final budget so that we can support all of our students and families. We also have gotten significant amount of federal money. Some of this money went straight to school districts, but some of it is kept at the state level. And one of the things that we're focusing on is that school districts and schools have to partner with community-based organizations to provide these supports. So funding out of the federal ESSER 1 funds grants to community-based organizations to partner with school districts to provide integrated student supports, wraparound services, expanded learning opportunities, and language and disability access, which are all areas identified that have been impacted. And like I said at the beginning, the mental health crisis has been here and it's exacerbated. And we don't want to stay in the place of admiring the data. The data is important, but we need to focus on what we need to do to build protective support for the loss of protective factors that are there for students and families, and ultimately build resilience. We know that we have had a traumatic experience and that we can get to the other side of this by focusing on those supportive factors, protective factors to build resilience. The last thing I would just add before I pass it to Farron is that every school district in the state is turning in academic and student well-being and recovery plan on June 1st. So please engage with your local school districts and school boards on those plans. It's for next school year, and it's the title is really important. It's not just academic recovery, it's academic and student well-being recovery plan. So it's very explicit about we have to attend to mental, behavioral health, family supports, all of that for next school year. So with that, we feel really hopeful and we're excited to work with all the folks on this Zoom to make this a reality. I'm going to pass it to Farron.
Thanks, Maria. And let's hear from some young people. I want to preface this with you're gonna meet some young people that have some support and they still had some challenges. So wrap your mind around that when there's students who don't have the support and the caring adult that they've had in their life to help them walk through some challenging. I've seen in the chat, there's been some students who've been cool. They've been able to walk through this and be okay. But then there's also been some students who haven't been able to do that. But right now I'm going to introduce our first youth speaker. His name is Brian Janges. He's a senior at Lincoln High School, so he's rising. He's gotten about 5 scholarships, to different, 4-year colleges. So I'm very, very proud of him. But I grounded, each of the youth in some questions that I'm just going to say, but they're going to talk a little bit and share from their heart around how this year went with them. And so some of the questions that I asked them is, what was this school year like, being distanced? What type of supports did you lean on? What type of supports did you wish you had? And as you move into summer and fall, what do you need from the people that are around you that are supporting you? So Brian, go ahead and give us a little bit of your thoughts and perspective around this year and those questions.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. So I want to start off with saying that, I mean, even since last March, so was my junior year, still was the end of it. The virus obviously came so abruptly. There were a lot of unanswered questions. We only expected to have 2 weeks off, and then it turned into like 2 months. And then we ended up just finding out that the whole school year was canceled and that we had to stay home. I think since then, there was so much anxiety built up, because we had those unanswered questions. And on top of the virus, separated from that, there were so many events happening around us too. I think that since we stayed home and weren't going out because because of the virus, we had the opportunity to use social media to like educate ourselves and see more of what was happening around us. I know with my generation, we like to share things around like on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok now. So we're educating ourselves on those platforms and we're able to see things happening around us. I think that's something that came out of the virus that is really impactful. But the start of my senior year, we knew that it was going to be virtual too, staying at home. So obviously we would have wanted to have it in person, especially since I was having my last year. But I know the people around me, some other friends were discouraged being virtual. I know that they already had struggles inside of the classroom, so they knew that they were going to struggle even more outside of the classroom, being at home, being self-sufficient, because it was a huge shift for us. And also the teachers, a lot of teachers were also adapting and going through issues. But I know for me, I had a ton of support. So like Miss Farron, some advisors, I had, because I'm in ASB, so I'm a student leadership, and I'm also in Key Club, so I have my advisor in there, and I have all this other support around me, like my counselors and the college career counselors. But I know that a ton of other students around me don't have those same opportunities, and that they're just really on their own. They just have their friends around them, and I know I was lucky enough to have all those people with me. But I want to emphasize that a lot of students didn't. So they're, especially those that are seniors in my year, they're lost. A lot of them are lost because a lot of these programs we have that are for seniors, that are like colleges limit, like set a cap at the students. So I know a lot of them aren't able to join these programs. So I think they're pretty stuck because they're not getting that necessary help. But it would be great for them to, have somebody there to talk to them, to discuss them, and let them know that they have a plan that they could set up for their futures too. I think that I'm ready for my future. I'm set up. I got all the support I needed. But things additionally outside of that, I know that something that helped me a lot was during the school year, there were a lot of events that happened that we saw on the news that were really impactful. I was given the opportunity to, during my classes, discuss those things that were happening, like in January, some events that were happening, having like a safe space for that. I know that really helped me out. Being able to set aside, the normal curriculum and be able to have a space to talk and discuss about the events that were happening around us really helped to open up that space. And that was during the class time. I know early January we had the opportunity to do those things. And I think that really let us take like a breath, and set aside the school and really talk about what was happening around us. Because besides school, there's the virus and all these things we're seeing on social media, on the news. And honestly, it's like really nice to talk about it, like to vent, to release that pressure. So I think that's something huge that really helped. And moving into summer and fall, I'm going to be starting college, university. I'm still deciding where I'm going to go. I have 2 more weeks. But I know that I have a great support system that it will be able to support me, and I'm thankful for that. I think continuing on focusing on mental health still, because I mean it's always going to be important, whether the virus is here or not. And same with the others that don't have as much support. I wish that they could have somebody there in school, even during the summer, someone with contacts, some like college career counselors, things like that, or just counselors in general, to support them during these times. Because I know the virus is still always going to be here, even as people are getting more and more vaccinated. And then besides that, we're seeing more things like this week, events like that, that many, might be confused about or be wondering things about. So giving students the chance to speak about those things would be great too. Like a little safe space to share their opinions and be able to, talk about what they want. So yeah.
All
I
right.
think that's all I have.
Thanks, Brian. So one thing that's resonating with me is safe spaces. Safe spaces. So I'm holding on to that. Access to counselors in different ways. Barriers removed from, I have heard you guys share a little bit about some of the college-bound opportunities and how sometimes if you're in a two-parent household and you're above the income, you don't have access to that. So how do we help, move some of those needles and make sure there's equity access for all? So thank you for sharing that, and best of luck to you. I'm just very proud of you. We're going to move on to the next student, Hope. If you're in the space, we would love to hear from you. Tell us how your year has gone. What did you need? How did you cope? And what do you need from us moving forward?
Hi, my name is Hope Shear. I'm 15. I'm from Olympia, Washington, but I moved to Shawn around 8 or 9 years ago. I go to Cedar High School, and COVID was an experience for me. As a person of color and just living in Mason County in general, with COVID on top, it was a lot. Like growing up here, I experienced racism at a very young age, just from being called names and stuff in Mason County. Like, it was hard because the major population here is white, so it was weird being, like, in my family, I was taught no one is different from each other. We all love each other. And I was so used to that until I was exposed to being called the N-word and other just nasty slurs at school. And I knew at some point, if teachers weren't going to help me, I was going to have my voice heard, like whether it was by a teacher or it was by myself. And just this year with COVID going on, it was a lot, because at the beginning of COVID, it was really tough maneuvering around what we were all gonna do. And I was really lost at first, and I was struggling with my mental health a lot. Around a year ago, at the beginning of COVID, I tried to commit, and it was really hard for me and my family, especially with COVID, because not everyone was able to access the resources that they were once able to. But she was good with putting me in therapy, so I was getting the help I needed. And then differences happened with me and my therapist, so I no longer went. And throughout COVID, it was just thing after another. And I think it was a few months later, after I was already dealing with a bunch of mental health stuff, October rolled around, and I found out, after trying to get into contact with my dad, I found out he passed away due to COVID. And since then, I realized that people were taking a pandemic as a joke, and I knew that if I wasn't going to communicate towards my friends and the people I surround myself with that it's a serious thing that they should be taking seriously, then I can't have them in my life. Because after being impacted by something that big for me, it was no longer a joke. And I lost a few friendships due to COVID, from friends who didn't want to wear masks in public to people who felt like COVID wasn't real. And I just felt uncomfortable being around them, because at some point I realized that it wasn't their belief system and I was being their friend, ignoring their beliefs. I was condoning that immature behavior, and I don't want that for myself. I want to have people around me that I can feel comfortable with going out with if I were to hang out with them. And I do have a few other people in my life who have passed away due to COVID, and it sucks a lot, but I chose to push through and not let it get to me the way I know some people did. And death is a really hard thing for some people to cope with. but we're getting through it. And COVID in Mason County was crazy. COVID in Mason County was really weird because there were a lot of people here who were anti-maskers and stuff, and it made me really uncomfortable to go outside and just be around people who didn't feel comfortable wearing masks, because you're not only putting me at danger, you're putting people I come into contact with, my family, my loved ones, like, and it was just so hard understanding, like wrapping my head around how these people decided to be selfish instead of just wearing a piece of cloth around their face. And I still will never understand how they feel comfortable doing that to others, because like I said before, it's just selfish. And I think in Mason County, there are a lot of times where people of color have been felt like they were the lesser because we're not the popularity. People of color in Mason County have struggled for so long. Like in 6th grade, I started dealing with it in 6th grade. And it's weird that these kids don't understand non-POC, let me say that. Non-POC don't understand that they don't understand what people of color go through. And they're finally understanding that if they say that and they say they're vocal about not understanding what people of color go through, but they try and help, but make it clear that them as a non-POC, they would never understand. That's what can help. Ignoring race is our problem. If you recognize what I am, my struggles that I go through as a person of color, then that's where we can start getting things better. Not, I was about to say back to normal, but there's never been a normal where it's been everyone has been treated equally and noticed our race, you know?
Yeah. Thank you, Hope. Thank you for sharing that. I hope you see the chat and all this
I'm like reading some of them.
that you're getting. Thank you for sharing that. A couple of things that's resonating from me around that from you is, you know, therapy is okay, right? Sometimes culturally there's a taboo on that, but I'm so glad that you had some supports around you that was able to help you get the resources that you need. And we need to make sure that that's accessible to everyone. Loss is a huge thing, and it's not an overnight get over, right? Like, and so you're going to have to, that is a one day at a time, one step at a time, being able to walk through that in a way to where you come out on the other side whole. And then social awareness, right? Like we've been talking a little bit about this racism and how do our white colleagues and our white friends and those who are not POC come in and be allies with us, right? And do it authentically. You know, it's not I'm standing on the sideline saying I'm sorry, right? It's getting in the space with you and understanding where that comes from, being a POC, having to navigate this. So thank you for bringing up those points. And we're going to continue to have some conversation around this a little later with community circles, and we'll talk about it. So thank you again for being here, and we appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. And I do agree therapy should be a lot more normalized, because there's nothing wrong with therapy, and there used to be a stigma around it where people who are in therapy, there was something wrong with them. When in reality, therapy is so healthy for people. Even if you feel at some point like maybe I don't need therapy, it's still good to maybe try it out, because you have that person you can confide in, tell your deepest secrets to, as long as it's nothing that involves hurting yourself. And they can keep it to themselves and give you like tools to help yourself like feel as your best self.
Yes, I love that. All right, we're gonna hop over to Sortse. Sortse is she's from my alma mater, Foss High School. She's a junior, and she's gonna just share her story. So Sortse, take it away. You know, the questions that we're, you know, wanting to hear from you. So go ahead and share your story.
Yeah, so I'm also a full-time running start student, so I'm going for my AA in biology. At the beginning, like I was very overwhelmed with school. So like I was doing ASB, helping Miss Farron with like youth summit planning. I had just started softball. It was a lot like to handle, and I was also going through like studying for midterms, pre-calculus, all of that. So when I heard about like the break that was only supposed to be like 2 weeks, I was excited for it, because like I kind of needed that break from school. And then like the time just kept getting extended. So I noticed that my mental health started to like not be as good as it should have been, because I was so used to seeing my friends every day, so used to being at school, doing sports. And it kind of just got hard. So a lot of my support system was social media, like staying up to date on like what my friends are doing, what's going on around like Tacoma, schools, how everything's doing with COVID. And I also leaned onto one of my closest friends a lot, just because he also kind of knew how like I felt, because he was also going through the same thing. So we both kind of just leaned on each other for help. And then as this school year started, I was obviously going into community college classes. So it was kind of hard to adjust from being in like high school classes, obviously, to community college classes, like trying to learn things in under 12 weeks, but also be online and keep in the know about things like Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, all of the other social issues that were going on at that point and are still going on. It was just kind of hard to find a balance between all of that, but also being home 24/7 when I'm so used to being at school 24/7. So it was a really big like change in environment. And luckily I have a really good support system, like my family, Ms. Farron, my ASB advisor, Antoine Page at Foss, my high school counselor, because she was also my ASB class counselor or advisor. It was just really, really hard to adjust. And also with everything that was going on, it was hard to keep up, like to feel like I was keeping up with everything. Like my motivation to do schoolwork had just disappeared. I didn't feel motivated to do schoolwork. I just kind of wanted to lay in bed all day and stay on social media and see what was going on, because I had missed that social aspect of life. And I don't know, I feel like for me, I do have a really good support system, but like I know from my classmates, they were struggling because like their family life isn't as good as mine, and they don't have like the support systems that I do. So it's really hard to like see what they're going through, and to know that like it's hard for me to support them when I'm at home and they're at home where it's not as great. Like school was kind of their escape from all of that, but now that like school is canceled, they're stuck at home with their problems, and it's hard for them to like manage what they're doing while also dealing with that. So it's just kind of hard to see like how my situation was compared to others, because I'm very blessed to have what I have, and to like see that others have it worse than me. And I'm like very thankful to have everything that I have, to have Miss Farron, who's connected to me, who's like given me the many connections that I have, and to support me and like give me a space to talk about the things that we're talking about. Because I know like at TCC, we're not like, professors don't open up spaces to be able to talk about these things and to just like voice our opinions on it, or even educate ourselves more on it within our classmates. And I don't know how things are going at Foss, but within like ASB, we do open up to those things. But I do know that a lot of Foss students are struggling. A lot of them are low income, they depend on school, and that's where majority of the support systems come from. So I think just being able to open up more spaces for students and, you know, just see what they need along the way. I know a lot of my teachers are struggling as well, because they're dealing with their family issues and everything that's going around in their life. So, you know, it's hard for them to focus on their family, but then also have to focus on what's going on at school, worry about their students. My BSU advisor has said that like she tries to reach out to students, but it's really hard to connect with them, especially when everything's virtual. She said that like students weren't doing assignments, and when she tried to like reach out to them, she wouldn't get responses and everything. So I think it's just hard with students adjusting to all of this also suddenly. And then, them being told that they can go back to school, and then they're like, whoa, we need to push it back some more because of COVID cases, or they need to, or like they can't go because of health issues and everything like that. So it's just hard to see everything that's going on and to also process it and manage school and family life and everything.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Some things resonating with me right now. Still, safe spaces, y'all. Safe spaces. Radical empathy. Brian just sent that message to me. Being able to support our young people who want to support their friends. What tools can we give them to be able to be a peer mentor, peer support, and not feel bad if it's not showing up in their life like that. But they want to make sure that the friends that are around them that aren't in that space, have the supports that they need. So very, very important youth voice right here, grown people, that are surrounding them. I appreciate you, Sartse. We're going to connect. And yes, she's a very hardworking young lady, y'all. Really, really is. And tender, caring, but knows where she needs to connect to get support. And I appreciate that. We got to make sure we build all of our young people to have access to caring adults in their life. So I appreciate your time, Sartse, and we'll connect soon. Our last speaker, and I know we're a little bit over time, Corbett, so just let me know how you guys want to do this, but Meher is going to share a little bit of her story. I'm very encouraged and excited to hear this space and be in this space with her. So Meher, it's you're up, and tell us how you're feeling right now.
Hi, thank you so much. So hello, everyone. My name is Meher Graywal, and I am a rising 9th grade student in Bellevue. And today I represent not only myself, but also the voices of my peers. We're really the generation that represents the change makers, the innovators, people who really think outside the box. And we will be taking over from our parents to bring about effective change, such as equality for all, climate action, innovations in science and technology. However, due to this experience that we're all going through right now, we're also the generation that can be called the quarantine generation, the generation that experienced lockdown amidst the pandemic of the century. A contagion that put everything on a standstill, like even our social interactions, school activities, sports. And the collateral damage of this pandemic is the great toll that it has taken on us teens. So I have always been passionate about community health, outreach, and grassroots work. I've been helping organize health camps and have initiated several health campaigns in the community. I was spurred to action in February 2020 when the lockdown started, when our worlds turned upside down. I really wanted to do something for my peers who were struggling and having a hard time coming to terms with all the change that was taking over our lives. I started my magazine Youth Aware, which is a platform for the youth to share their ideas, their views on things that are important to them, to know about the world and things that affect them. It quickly drew an audience around the world, and we have not only readers, but also writers around the world. And I use this platform to interview community leaders, scientists, doctors, firefighters, just people who inspire the youth during this time so that young people can really hear from them, learn from them, and be motivated to keep on going even though we're in this difficult time right now. And I realized that Youth Aware could be an instrument for change. And I especially wanted to do something to help families that were struggling during this time. So many families have lost their jobs, and we started organizing drives for our community. So we did backpack and school supplies drives, collecting dry food items, as well as warm meals drives. And we also collected and donated clothes and toys around the holiday season. We also started Clean Hands Collective, where we installed mobile and permanent hand hygiene units around the greater Seattle area as an effort to promote hand hygiene in the community. So now I would like to talk about our most important work geared toward through Youth Aware. So my organization, Worth a Shot, which is an offshoot of Youth Aware, is a youth-led public health effort. We have been raising awareness about the COVID vaccines, educating people, holding webinars and town halls from the community, and we have translated COVID vaccine info into 15 different languages. We're also collaborating with King County Public Health to raise vaccine optimism in the community, which we've found can be a powerful tool for just helping people who are struggling during this time, people who are looking for a source of hope, people who feel like nothing's going right. And so now we're also focusing on mental health. And before the pandemic started, I was working on a program called Teen Cafes, just a safe space for teens to kind of have a conversation around the table to talk about top sources of stress for them that were mediated by counselors, where they could get both support and life skills. And the idea was that it would be a space to talk about things like anxiety, depression, peer pressure, bullying, which a lot of kids experience, but we thought that was so important for those kids to know that they are not alone, and just hearing stories from other kids who've gone through the same experience like them can be very empowering. I was meeting with Youth Eastside Services in Bellevue to collaborate on this effort. But once the lockdown happened, we realized that we couldn't do this in person. And so we quickly switched gears, and thanks to Youth Eastside Services, we were actually able to do this group virtually. And it has been going on for more than a year, every week. So it has been a very dynamic group. We've had people join in as they found out about it. It's free, and we have counselors with us every time. So this has been a safe space for young people to come and express themselves. It has been a place for venting, expressing fearlessly, and also for empathy and compassion. So we're currently talking about life skills, and youth in the group have really grown together in many ways. And at first, we could clearly see that when this group first started, the young people involved were a lot more hesitant to talk and to share their stories, because we were just getting to know each other as a group. But now we can see that as this group has been going on for more than a year now, we can see the impact that it has made on youth. And now young people are feeling more confident and open to sharing their stories and getting advice from both people their age and the counselors from YES. We also started a second group in collaboration with Crisis Connections, and this group is also virtual. We meet alternate Thursdays, and this group is unique because this group focuses on family life. So we know that a lot of families have experienced a lot of have gone through a lot during this time, and it's open to parents and kids, and there's a counselor on board. So through our work, my team and I really want to make a positive impact, and I'm fortunate to collaborate with Ms. Schmitz and Mr. Mosesley to be part of Washington Wellness. Thank you so much.
Wow, you're doing some good work, girl. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully we can get some of those resources and grab a couple of more of the organizations that you talked a little bit about that you've launched, so we can spread that, throughout our state with the young people who want to, participate. So thank you to all of our young people, for sharing. Just powerful. I've seen the chat. There's folks who are just so excited to have the now generation wanting to see something different show up in their lives. And so excited about that. Out of this, there will be a follow-up to this conversation. We're going to be hosting throughout our community something called youth-led community circles. It's an opportunity for us to do just what we just did today. We heard, four some powerful young leaders, but there are more that we need to hear, and we need to listen to see what's going on in their lives and what type of support do we need to get to them. And out of these community circles, we will develop some PD and training for the adults that are serving young people. It's one thing to talk about young people and youth voice. It's another thing to give them agency and to help them plan what that looks like and how it's implemented into their life. And so these community circles are going to do just that. So those who have registered for this luncheon, you're going to receive an email with some information, some dates around when these community circles will take place. It will be young people led. It will be young people involved, and we want the adults to be in the space to hear and listen. And out of that, we will pull out these themes and create some really cool PD that's custom fit for our babies to make sure that they can walk strong in life. So excited about that. Be looking for some, more information and details around that over the next week from Corbett. And then I just want to do a nod, like this is the work, y'all. This is the work. I am so excited to be a part of this campaign, a mindful state. I just love just the sound of that, because we all can see ourselves in the work. There's a fabulous team that's behind the scenes doing some crazy good work. This is one of very many luncheons that are going to happen. We just happen to start off with our young people because that's where we're getting ready to engage, right now in summer and fall. But we're going to show up in the health sector. We're going to show up in some other spaces with some luncheons talking about this. So without further ado, I can turn it back over to you, Jamad or Corbett, to close. But this is the work right here. And I'm very excited to walk alongside all of you guys with our young people in this space. And we're gonna support. And it's a journey. It's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. We gotta walk strong and one day at a time with this work. But it's just exciting to have you guys all in the space, and we'll continue to move this work forward. So I'll kick it back to you, Jamad.
Thank you so much, Farron, and thank you to all of our youth leaders. I'm just going to make a couple comments really fast, just some of my observations. One is that I think it's amazing how our youth, and so I hope people heard this, how our youth navigate seamlessly between COVID and systemic racism as being dual pandemics. So often as adults, we try to compartmentalize those things. But again, as you can see, for our young people, they're able to hold and navigate because they understand that they are one and the same. You can't talk about equity in compartments. The other thing that I would mention as well is that resiliency. This was shared with me through Kelsey, is she was saying that how the most common response to disaster is resilience. The thing I love about resilience is that resilience is measured at the end. It's not measured at how people respond in the first 2 weeks. As you heard through these young people and their young voices, their powerful voices, it's not always an upward trajectory, but you can hear resilience in it. And that resilience meant that there were some ups and downs. Hey, I was excited at first, and then I was like, man, this doesn't feel good being stuck at home. And, what am I going to do? Resilience is measured at the end. And so we have lots of opportunities, folks, where we currently are to still help build resilience and help our young people build resilience. So I just wanted to share those two things really fast, things that I heard as they were speaking. I think we have a couple of slides that we want to just show as we get ready to close around where we can connect next. And actually, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you if you wanted to talk about the social media and those pieces as well.
Well, I just want to really briefly say that this Mindful State, this Washington Wellness Project, is really around initiating a certain kind of engagement. I think it's kind of a magical unicorn, and I'm very excited about it because it really offers folks to speak about their stories and then use uncommon data to create common, beautiful resources based on personal truth. So it's the kind of thing that's revolutionary thinking, and I'm very excited about it. So I wanted to say that that this is really a project that's going to work across the state to connect all corners in this particular experience and this particular youth experience. It's connected to our connectivity and who we are as the same as well as difference, and then the ability to report your narrative and connect with folks who are like you and unlike you in a common experience all across the state. It's really where all the work really occurs, is our connectiveness, and the fact that the state of Washington is recognizing this and trying to fund this and turn it into something that is usable for all of us is a powerful, powerful moment. So I know I seem excited about this because I am, and I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing the ways in which I am connected to all you and watching the youth connect to each other in this format. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, Jamal.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So folks, again, you know, the campaign is there. There's been resources that have been dropped into the chat box for us to connect with. So there's a link that I saw just placed in there. Again, some more culturally relevant resources for this work. Again, TeenLink, we wanted to give a nod and a shout out to TeenLink. And so you can see here where you can text, call, or chat a teen trained to help. So very important resources to share as well as these other ones. Again, these will all be made available to everyone through the chat box and also through emails following the event. Yes, so we would love to hear from you, feedback on was this helpful? How can we improve? How can we continue to strengthen this network? Again, as you heard Kim mention, this is about the statewide campaign. This is today was an event, but the event is really to get us all connected so we can continue to do the work. So we would love to hear your feedback. That will also be shared out as well, ways that you could provide feedback on that. But we would love to get the feedback on was this helpful and how can we improve? So with that said, folks, I know that brings us to the hour. A lot of powerful conversation. Thank you to all of our youth leaders. I think you impacted people more than you could ever even imagine with your stories, your voice, and your truth. So thank you for that. Thank you to all of our presenters as well for the information. I know the first time that I saw that whole dip and that honeymoon phase and the disillusionment, I was like, oh my goodness. You know, so thank you to everyone again. Thank you for bringing us all together for this. And Corbett, I know you've been behind the scenes and quiet. I'll turn it over to you or Kelsey for any last minute comments, but thank you all.
No, just thank you, Jamad. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and looking forward to following up with folks. Thank you, and I know that our youth have to get back to class. They're on their lunch break, and so we'll follow up and have some more information for you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Powerful information today. Go back to what Dr. Sabine mentioned at the beginning and continue breathing. Enjoy the sunshine, but continue breathing. Thank you all.